Angie has moved on, so we'll get the new representative from Grand Round. Julie Seastrom.
Wait,
I'm here.
still here.
Oh, Angie is there. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to look. Oh, well, I'm glad you're back. We already miss you. Jemiah.
I'm present.
Great. Valerie Switzler. Diane Tiemann or Elizabeth Smith.
I'm here, Elizabeth Smith, and we have a new education manager who's going to be starting to attend these meetings, but he wasn't able to make it today, so I'm just listening in on his behalf.
Okay, and his name again, Elizabeth?
His name is Neil Taylor.
Okay, we'll get him added, Dory, and Michael Cherry.
She will be, Sonia, she will be logging in here just in a minute.
Okay, great. Angela Fasana. Alyssa Severson from Coquel. Christina Simpson from Coquel. Jennifer Jackson from Klamath. Melissa Montero from Klamath.
Here.
Lloyd Commander from Umatilla. Oh, Lloyd's here.
I'm here.
And Alyssa. I think she had another meeting conflict. And then TJ Cooper from Cow Creek.
TJ will probably be joining us later.
Okay.
So with the exception of Coquel, I think we have all, and Warm Springs. Those are our two tribes that we're missing today.
And I think Julie Seastrom hopped on after her name was called. Julie, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, but
Okay. So for those folks that were not a part of the roll call, maybe we could go around the room and we'll ask you to introduce yourself. I have a Joshua Lee that I've not seen before.
Hey, Sandra. Good afternoon, everyone. Joshua Lee, Program Specialist from the Office of Child Care here in Region 10. I'm currently the Program Specialist that supports the tribes that share borders with Oregon with their CCDF program.
Nice to have you, Joshua. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rebecca Brown.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Brown. I'm brand new at the Oregon Home Visiting System Coordination Center at Portland State. And I was asked to come and attend and listen. I'm a little bit worried. I feel a bit like I'm crashing your meeting. So I'm perfectly happy to head on out if that's more appropriate. But if it's all right to stay and listen, that would be greatly appreciated.
Well, we are public meetings, so we follow the public meeting laws. Natalie Jackson up there in the corner of the Brady Bunch. How are you?
Good, I'm fine. Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Jackson. I am a child care provider in Ashland, Oregon. I've been a child care provider since 2010. Took off some time during COVID. I'm back. I am a Klamath tribal member. I live in Ashland. Klamath is probably about 80 miles from here, but most of the children that I watch in my care are Indigenous or children of color. Formerly, I sat as a child care president for SEIU. I sat on their bargaining committee. I have sat on a couple of regulation advisory committees and spoke before the House. So thank you for having me and allowing me to join this tribal advisory committee. I don't remember it ever. I don't remember. When did you guys start the advisory committee?
So we've been in existence for quite some time. The advisory committee is doing the work of doing the work of either creating a tribal hub and or a education subcommittee. And so the representatives of the 9 tribe are here to lift up the work that involves our early childhood learning in each of the tribes. So,
I am so excited to hear that. And
so
thank you
this
guys
is,
for,
so we will move, we do have an agenda, and we will move through our agenda. And you just are not a voting member, you're an observer.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
okay, perfect,
thank you.
perfect. So the next one would be Britt Taft.
Hi everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Britt Taft. I am the new tribal liaison for Trillium Community Health Plan, and I serve both Lane County, Southwest, and the Tri-County areas.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us. I believe I got a Cassandra Moses.
Good afternoon, everyone. My apologies, I will not be on camera. I am coming down with a cold. I am a member of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, but I am a program specialist for the Office of Child Care, and I am supporting, currently I'm supporting tribes in Washington with CCDF, but also the state of Oregon. I help support the state of Oregon with Kathy and Caitlin, and also the state of Washington with Josh.
Excellent. Nice to have you on board. Kate
There we go.
Dennison.
Hi, I'm Kate Dennison. I'm the relatively new government affairs manager for the Department of Early Learning and Care. Just here for the first part of the meeting to listen and learn from you.
Thank you. Good to have you here. I know I'm going to miss, there's Valerie Switzer. Good to see you, Valerie. Catherine Jackson.
Yes, hello everyone. Catherine Jackson. I am with the Office of Child Care, Senior Regional Program Specialist working with the state of Oregon, also Alaska, and about half the tribal lead agencies in Alaska as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Valentina?
Hello, good evening, everyone. Actually, good afternoon. I am in Virginia, so I think everywhere is evening. I'm so sorry. Right. So I am Valentina Saria-Jabin, a Senior Program Specialist in Office of Child Care. I have been the regional liaison to regions 8 and 10, but currently I am on a detour to region 10. And I am supposed to be supporting the tribes in Washington and also supporting Caitlin while she's away in dealing with all the things that we have to do in Oregon State. Thank you.
So we just want to clarify that Office of Child Care staff are with Region 10, not DELC. So we want to make sure that folks understand that as we move forward. Jory Spencer.
Yes, hello. My name is Jory Spencer. I'm with the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation, Department of Child and Family Services, Family Engagement Program.
Nice to have you here, Jory. Thank you. And Dion?
Dion Bronson. I'm the Family Engagement Program Manager for the Confederated Tribes of Umatilla Indian Reservation.
Got a big Umatilla contingent today. Excellent. And Jamie Crane.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jamie Crane. I am the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation Director of Education.
Oh, nice to have you on. Nice to have you.
Thank
I would
you.
say, yeah. You're the new Modesta.
I am.
Good. Nice to have you. Nice to have you here. Okay.
Sandy, we're on to 2 pages, so I wanted to make sure you saw that Michael Cherry and Angela Fasana also joined.
Oh, good. I did actually see. I saw Michael Cherry in the bottom and Angela. I didn't see, but we're there. So we have a full house, and I believe everybody has been introduced that aren't normally part of the TAC.
Sandra, can I ask one question?
Sure, Julie.
Did we get anybody from Coquille this meeting or not?
Not yet.
I don't believe so. Neither representatives are here.
I don't know if that's important or not.
We have a quorum for the meetings, but we hate to miss any tribe, but we do have 8 of the 9 tribes.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Marcia Frost just joined.
Excellent.
We do.
And, okay, then yes, we have all 9 tribes.
Excellent.
Yay!
Yeah, Marcia Frost, it's good to have you on board. Okay, so we've had introductions, we've welcomed, we've had a roll call. Do we want to go right into an early learning council update from Angie Blackwell?
Yes.
Sure thing. This will be pretty brief, but I wanted to share the opportunity with you all. I actually was appointed to the Early Learning Council and served in that role for, I guess, almost 4 years, something like that. But I've accepted a new position here with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. I don't feel like I have the time to dedicate to the Early Learning Council that I once might have had. And so I am strongly encouraging all of the other tribes to submit applications for this vacancy that I left on the Early Learning Council. I don't really know if there's anybody even within Grand Ronde that has the capacity to apply for that vacant seat, but it is appointed by the governor. And so there's quite a process, but they would really appreciate tribal representation. And I just wanted to invite all of you to consider that.
What's the time commitment on that, Angie?
I wish I could say that it was slim. They only meet, I think, about twice a year in person now. A lot of the meetings are hybrid, so you can attend in person if you prefer, but there are at least 2 meetings per year that they request in-person attendance. I think that we're reached the point where we're meeting monthly now. So it is quite a time commitment. There are a few like ad hoc committees, I guess you could call them, off of the Early Learning Council. So I participated in a couple of those, but that's not automatic for every council member. It just depends on your areas of expertise and what's on the table at the time. The other thing is there aren't a lot of people on the Early Learning Council with a background in the early learning field. Remember that the Early Learning Council is about this cross-sector work and bringing in people from all of the different sectors that touch children and families. So the people that are representatives on the Early Learning Council cover a variety of sectors. I guess there is another person on there that's from the early learning field, but it would be really great if a tribal representative also came from the early learning field that was serving on that council.
And the process again, please, is to get.
There is an application and that has to be submitted. I don't know if the vacancy's been posted yet. And then there's an appointment through the governor's office. Alyssa, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I was gonna pull up the application if it's posted, but yeah, so you'll apply like you would for a state job through Workday, and fill out some questions, and then the governor's office will review. While the Early Learning Council is not a Senate confirmed body, usually executive appointments are kind of reviewed all at the same time, and so it usually happens kind of on a quarterly basis. And I just wanted to clarify or underscore that that Angie's been in the position for a tribal representative, and so wanted to affirm that we won't fill it with anybody, right? We won't, if somebody comes forward with great early learning experience, but they're not there as representative of their tribe, this is not a position that would be available to them. So this is specifically for a tribal representative from the 9 federally recognized tribes in Oregon's borders.
Thank you.
And the meetings are about 5 hours a month. We try to get materials out about a week in advance. Some of the packets are very lengthy, especially through rulemaking, but we've had a great team that's pretty good about distilling the kind of high points. And hopefully, Angie, you and others have felt like you get enough information to take action. But as Angie mentioned, it really is, there's been an intentional effort for this not to just be about the work of DELC, but recognize the full early childhood system. And so having housing, human services, health, K-12 education, higher education perspectives as well. And Melissa, yes, we can definitely follow up with information about the council and the process for applying.
Excellent. Well, we hope to fill that position with someone. We hope to fill that.
Sandy, is it okay to ask a question?
It's always okay to ask a question. Julie, what's going on?
I just wanted to know if Alyssa will be sending all 9 tribes like, I don't know, follow-up information on that, the application thing, whatever it is, so that we could share it with our young people that might be able to apply.
Absolutely, Julie. We'll make sure the TAC has it, and we'll also send it out to all of the education directors through the government to government cluster. And if there's anyone else you want to make sure we're flagging this for, please let us know.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Julie.
Okay, next item on our agenda then would be the Otella grant review from Dana Castato, who is our Otella liaison. Talk away, Dana.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to be here and see you, although last week seeing many of you in person was, of course, better. But we're back to our Brady Bunch boxes. So I know that this reminder about the final report for the 21-23 Otella grant was already included in the email that Dory sent. But I'm putting it out there one more time because this is the last report for last biennium and it's due March 15th. And I just welcome you to reach out to me if you have any questions about it or if you need any assistance on it. I think I can share my screen. So I'll just share my screen real quick and show you all what it looks like. So you should be able to see my screen now.
Yep.
Okay, great. So on the drop down, it's just the final report, January 2024. And it's 2 questions. One is a question with 4 parts. So it's still technically 2 questions. And just the numbers served and then a narrative about the purpose of the funds. And so it was made to be simplistic, yet be able to tell the story. So doing this report should be straightforward, and I can also drop the link for it in the chat here on Zoom. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for now, although I will be sharing again in a bit when we get to it. And here in the chat are the, oh, looks like that's not going to work. Okay. Well, there's my email in the chat. Let me figure out why the link isn't staying as a link when I put it in the chat, and I'll get that in there in a second. But yeah, we're excited that we're really close to closing out last year or last biennium and starting fresh for new intergovernmental agreements for the remainder of the 23-25 biennium. So even though we're transitioning away from last year, you can still continue to use the same Otella reporting link because we'll keep using that in the new smart sheet. We'll just add new reports for this biennium. So if you already have it saved as a favorite, you don't have to delete it or change it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing your final reports, reading the narratives, and I think it will be really great to have some data on the numbers of children and families and educators served by the funding because, I mean, it ties right into our next discussion topic, the crosswalk we've been working on, but it really is showing what this work has done, and then eventually we'll hopefully be able to do more. So let me get the crosswalk pulled up on my screen as well, and I'll pass it back over to Sandy and Sonia while I do that.
There we are.
And just 1 second. Okay, and sorry for the delay, but I've got the new link in the chat now too, for the final report.
And I just remind since I know everyone has access to the chat, that link is just for the tribal grant managers with each tribe. So if you're on as a member of the public, please don't submit anything through that form. We don't need to collect information from you.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Okay, well, we've got the crosswalk up. So as the group may or may not remember, we did have a work group that got together that was working on getting, looking at the AI, American Indian Alaska Native Success Plan, and kind of taking elements from that that are relevant to the work that we're doing here in the early child learning, and trying to build from that work rather than recreating the entire wheel, build from that work and an additional, our own early childhood education success plan. So I believe that's what we have up on the board now, or up in our screen now, correct? You can reaffirm that.
Yes,
for me.
that's correct.
Make me feel better. Thank you. And I believe that we pretty much got through it from as far as the work group was concerned, correct?
That's correct, Sandy. Where we've kind of landed is we know we've had a lot of conversation with the TAC as well as the work group, and I think we're at a place where DELC now can go through and see what data we currently collect and be able to come back to either the TAC or the work group. Sandy, I don't know if you have a preference there, but start to highlight where we've got data and where we don't, and also what type of data we're collecting to see if it's a good proxy or not quite right, and then be able to kind of revisit from there.
I would venture to say that the group, the TAC, would appreciate the work group continuing the work and then coming back to the TAC. But if somebody feels differently, please, this would be the opportunity for you to speak now. Giving you
I agree with what you just said, Sandy.
Okay. Thanks, Julie. So do we just kind of want to scan through this as we go down? Do you want to explain the purple, the red, the green, different colors on there at all?
Yeah, definitely. So this has been a growing document. And so this, I think, started with Alyssa on a TAC meeting sometime in late 2023. And so in that meeting, the red were things that she had added. Purple are things that Jonas had added. And everything what was already here in black are what came out of the ODE AIAN Student Success Plan. Black and bold were added at the November TAC meeting. Green was discussed in the January TAC meeting. And then we have blue from when we did a work group. And then there's also some goldenrod, kind of brownish color that I added on this sheet in the interim, as well as the programs tab, just going through what the programs we do. There's not as much color coding on this. This is all just a brand new section that I had added since we went over it last time, that speaks to the other strategies besides the programs that we had gone over before.
Dana, is that a list that you could attach to it?
Yeah, this actually, so all of this was sent out in the meeting packet that Dory sent yesterday, I believe. So
No, I got the crosswalk, but it's I can't write as quickly as you speak as far as which color was associated with which person. So instead of asking you to repeat it, if you could just do like a little like box at the end that says red is so-and-so, green is so-and-so, black, like that. So we can just read it in our own time. You don't have to repeat it.
Yeah, it's up here at the very top of the spreadsheet. So I can copy and paste that and make sure
If it's there, if it's there already, don't do it again. I'm working off my phone, so it's like I can't see anything, so.
Gotcha. Thanks, Julie. Sandy, I think that covers the background. Do we want to go through and look at the line by line through here, or where do you want to go?
Well, so I think that, I think it's important to notice at this point in time that, for the rest of the TAC, that, obviously it's a rainbow coalition, that there's been a lot of different, folks working on this document and adding things to it and discussing it and trying to make it relevant to the work that we're doing in early childhood learning. We could slowly go through line by line if the group wants to do that. It was sent out for review to all the TAC members. So I'm open to what the group consensus would be. Do we want to go through it, or do you want to review some highlights? How do you want to handle this, guys, moving forward? I mean, when you look on the far left-hand side, and just kind of slowly scroll down through that information, these are all those relevant pieces to the work that we want to see in that early childhood learning, right? The tribal history, shared history, that shouldn't just be a K through 12 piece. That needs to be taught in our preschools and our all the way down. Obviously, improving student outcomes would be very relevant even to our littlest of littles, right? And all of those improving student outcomes are talking about systems of support, talking about advocating, talking about correctly identifying our population and our children's, so that we can kind of put a halt to the paper genocide we got going on.
I do want to say something.
Yes, excellent. Thanks, Valerie.
And reading the report and going over it, although it may or may not be intentional, the order of things, always everything on the top of the list always comes out to be that seems that's our most important drive, while improving student outcomes and all of that is important. We've always, and one of the main reasons that we established this hub was because of the native language drive that each of the 9 tribes had. And so for my own peace of mind, I would like to see language elevated. And that's just my opinion. If everybody else doesn't see it that way, that's okay too. But that's my perspective.
No, that's great, Val. And I don't think there is absolutely any order. I think we were taking stuff off of, like, when Alyssa started working on it, just some of the points off from the state plan. But no, we can like rearrange and prioritize the items. But right now, I think we're kind of on there as they were listed on other plans.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure, do we have the same document? Dana's looks like it's headed 3/11/24, and the one that I have says 1/17.
So does mine.
For with the 220 work group. Are they the same documents or different?
I think the content is the same. We only made a couple of changes, and I think it is just the date from when we reviewed it last time. Is that right, Dory?
Yes, I saved it with the updates, but I think the date on the top may be different from when we held the last meeting. Okay. But the content should all be the same.
Just wanted to make sure, because I was looking at the date on there. That we had
I'll verify and make sure they all match up and then resend that also.
Well, and maybe that is something once that Alyssa, Val brings up a really good point, that maybe once that Alyssa like verifies what information is collected by Delk, and then we start kind of defining these down, we do that as a group in like doing the priority listing of items, because they may be a little different by different tribes and regions. So maybe that after we kind of streamline and see what is tracked and what we want to call out or get more information on, then we can look at the prioritizing the objectives.
So I made a lemon rosemary and 5 different quantities, a grilled zucchini with a little tomato.
For what it's worth, that'd be really helpful for us to, I imagine there's going to be quite a few gaps. And so understanding the priorities of the TAC will really help us prioritize our capacity to be able to fill some of those areas where we're not currently collecting the right data or have the work or an infrastructure in place to start to achieve some of these goals.
So am I hearing then, as we further define this plan, do further work on it, that we stay in a work group mode until such time that we then want to sit and prioritize it, and then we bring that back to the TAC as a group to do that?
Yes.
I think so. And I think that like we could send it out, and then everyone could be ready to bring suggestions and bring you know, and maybe that is one of our in-person, so we could, you know, spread out and
Scratch and whatnot on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be easier to do in person, don't you?
I think so. When Jonah presented like his, it was nice seeing it, because like on here it's kind of hard to see. I have it pulled up on my screen, but if we're trying to follow track changes, sometimes it's a little bit hard on the computer. But I'll do whatever the rest of the group wants as well.
I saw a thumbs up from Val, and I see Michael agreeing in the chat as well.
Can we get consensus from the group that that's a plan of action moving forward?
I appreciate you guys allowing those of us that can't travel here or there or wherever at different times, giving us the option to log in via Zoom. So, you know, if at all possible, it'd be nice to be there in person, but if you could keep that option open for those of us that may or may not be able to get there in person, I'd appreciate it.
I agree.
Yes, I agree. I think we're there. I think we're there, Julie. After struggling through the pandemic, I think we're all hybrid. So I think we're good. We're good there.
And the other suggestion or thought about there being a work group, and then that work group sending us that information via email, and then us responding with whatever comments, concerns, or criticisms or recommendations or whatever. I can do that anytime. So, I mean, you know, I may not necessarily be in the work group, but if you send it to me and you want me to read it and respond in whatever kind of manner, I can do that.
Excellent. Okay, so we've captured next steps. Are there is there more discussion that we want to have in regards to this document? At this point in time, I should clarify that at this point in time.
Try Outstretch by Fresh Step. Absorbs 50% more.
Julie, you have stuff on mute, sweetie.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had one last thing I forgot to say. I appreciate what Valerie brought up about language, and what Sonia brought up about the order that was there was not an absolute order, and that, you know, that'll be something that'll be figured out as time goes by. Thank you.
You bet.
Sandy,
Yes.
do you, I wasn't sure if you wanted, if there was, now that we have so many more folks, if you wanted to revisit who's on the work group, because I know that's been a
Yeah.
small table.
Yes, it has been a small table. And Dory, I know that
Yes.
you probably could rattle off from an email who all is on that work group.
Well, I can tell you that the invite was supposed to include Lloyd and Angie for this very last one, but it did not, and that is my fault. We have you, Sonia, Angie, Blackwell, Lloyd, Commander, Alyssa, Paulina, and Dana.
So we probably should replace Angie because I think Angie's gonna leave us. Okay, so let's look for another tribal representative to do that with us. Should we voluntold somebody?
Remember, it's Valentold. That's our new
That's how it
terminology.
is.
Hey.
Well, before I'm Angie Blackwell told, I'm just gonna go ahead and volunteer to take her place. So
Perfect.
just
Thanks,
kidding.
Angie.
But yes, I will step in for in Angie's place.
Thank you.
And we don't have another one scheduled right now, correct?
No, we don't. Not right at this very moment. No, we don't.
Angie Fasana, I'll be your backup as well. If you ever can't attend, let me know.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, so we'll wait for next steps. Delk has got the next action items, and then we'll reconvene the work group and we'll just continue moving this work forward. I just want to say how much I appreciate all of our efforts. It's nice to see us move things forward. Appreciate it. Okay, so I guess the next item would be the Tribal Early Learning Hub survey results, which were also included in our invite that Dory sent out. But I bet Dana's going to share a screen again, isn't she?
I am.
Nice. Okay.
Almost like this was planned.
Almost like we're getting very professional at this.
Yes.
So just so that people remember, we did a couple of things. After the end of our last meeting, we talked about people going back to their tribes and talking to council or those executive teams to see what their preference was in regards to hub versus government to government, education subcommittee. There, got it. And then it kind of came to our attention that perhaps our definition of, or our understanding of, or our desires for hubs are different depending on where we're at in the state and what group we're working with. So a survey was sent out to tribal education directors, who then were supposed to share that down or crossed through, whatever the case may be, with their early learning folks who have worked with the hubs. And so we could get some feedback on that. So we did. And here are our results.
Yeah, thanks for prefacing that. Regarding the results, we received 4 responses, and each question exhibited a theme. So just for real quick over the 3 questions that the survey included, for the first question of what's the function of the tribal hub, support, and providing information was the takeaway for what a tribal hub can do for the tribes. And the takeaways from support that tribes needed was funding and resources for early learning. Within the responses to each of the questions, there were also 3 main things: collaboration, support, and sovereignty. And so looking through each question, we grouped the responses around those concepts. So in question 1, the function of a tribal hub: to provide support and training. and to function as a place where tribes can collaborate. For question 2, what you would expect a hub to do, it's to provide support for training, staff development, resources, offer a tribal network, and share best practices. And I think in the third question, it's the funding is direct funding, I should say, is a need that's made a little bit more evident, where tribes are identifying the things that they need, like funding to operate programs, along with the supports for training, staffing, and collaboration for best practices. So overall, I would say the responses of the expectations for a role of a hub were varying, but the need for funding was universal. So if there's anything else, because like I said, we got 4 responses. So if there's anything else that you'd like to voice as far as responsibilities of a hub, or what your thoughts are, or maybe if these results surprised you, we can talk about that.
Jennifer's not here. I'm sorry, I'm sick, but when we met with our tribal council, we have no idea who received the survey for the Klamath tribes. So we didn't get to respond to the survey. Are we like going head first into what we got from our tribal council, or are we just wanting to touch on the survey currently?
We're wanting to touch on the survey, because we're wanting to touch on the survey because that frames the discussion about a hub, right?
Mhm.
If my understanding of what a hub does is different than your understanding of a hub, then we need to come to some sort of common understanding there. So yeah, we want to talk about the survey first.
Okay.
Yeah, and also sorry, Melissa, for clarification, the survey was sent directly to the education directors.
Yeah, our tribe said that they don't know who that would have been. So that's what our tribal council
I
said.
think would be Julie Bettles. I think that
We touched base with her and she said she didn't receive the survey, so.
because she was at G2G last week, Thursday, Friday. And I had her dig through her emails and I think she found it on Thursday.
We did meet last Wednesday, last Tuesday, sorry. So
Yeah, prior to her coming up to G2G, that makes perfect sense then. Okay. Yes. Well, they're lost in translation, I guess. But please give us feedback on your hub, your ideas of hubs and what hubs can do.
I'll leave that to Julie. She's great at that.
Okay. Sorry you don't feel well.
It's the kids, nice little sponges of germs.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's so true. Yes.
So Alyssa, in looking at a lot of it is support professional development and the funding parts. Could you explain how that those could be met with doing direct set asides and doing the subcommittee through G2G, and then having like the Otella for kind of boots on the ground, as Sandy says, but like how these things could still be put into, I don't know if it would it be new or just changing the existing language in the law that's already there? Could you explain how, and then how we could still keep that support for professional development and trainings?
Yeah, happy to, Sonia. Yeah, so we took a look at these survey results and also reflected on the G2G conversation last week, as well as just the last couple of years of conversations with you all. And Dina, if you don't mind, I can share my screen. But so we were trying to think through how we could start to address these with the different structures that have been mentioned as you framed up, Sonia. And so debating the best way to share this. I'm going to send the basic version of this, and can you all see the Word document?
Yes.
Okay. Dana has made this pretty, and so we can also pivot to the pretty version, but this way we can walk through all of it together. So Tribal Advisory Committee currently is monthly, of course. When we think about the subcommittee, there's a couple of things that what we can do. So in terms of how we can start to address funding and how we can address some of the professional development, that really could be codified in statute. And so the way we could think about this work is the Tribal Advisory Committee in statute currently is created to report to the Early Learning Council on recommendations for a tribal early learning hub. That's the scope of the Tribal Advisory Committee. So the intention is that once a tribal early learning hub is defined and those recommendations are handed off, that the Tribal Advisory Committee ends. You all have been doing so much work on creating a tribal early learning plan and taking that AIAN crosswalk. So that is, I think, a really concrete recommendation that it seems like the TAC has been coming around. If we look at a tribal early learning fund and tribal set-asides as two separate strategies, both could happen. So we could put in statute, recommend through a bill that a tribal early learning fund is established. And this is a pot of funding that could be used for language and culture preservation and support. It could be used for professional development, could be used to compensate early childhood program staff for the programs that the tribes operate, could be used to supplement compensation for tribal Head Start programs, right, that aren't receiving state funding. So really looking at all of the amazing work you've been able to do with the small amount of OTELA funding that you got last biennium and are getting this biennium, and scale that up to make sure that you all have pretty broad allowability to dictate what your tribes need in service of early learning and aligning with the tribal early learning plan that you all are drafting. And then we could also have a tribal set aside in terms of any new funding. So in addition to having a dedicated fund, we could explore a requirement that any new investments in early learning that DELC receives would have a tribal set aside. That could be codified in statute. It could be codified in our consultation policy. So far, the agencies that have operationalized this practice, and I can stop sharing my screen, have done that just in their consultation policy, but there's an option to look at that through statute as well. So if we proceeded with a tribal early learning fund, we would establish that, we would request that the legislature establish that in statute, and we would request a policy option package, which is a budget request. And so we would want to work with you all to recommend what that looks like, bring those recommendations to the government education cluster to kind of sign off on what should that pot look like for 25-27, what should the allowable uses be based on the tax recommendations and the development of the tribal early learning plan. And that would all become part of DELC's agency request budget that would go before the governor's office for consideration and be available to the legislature as we kick off the 25 legislative session next January. With that, if that was the route y'all wanted to take, we also could open up the statute that has the tribal hub and do a few things. I know there's been some talk about one of the really amazing benefits of the TAC is that there are the subject matter experts, the early childhood program staff who are working with the children, receiving the professional learning services, really see boots on the ground, what's needed. Right now, the Tribal Advisory Committee would go away once the recommendations are done. We already have a placeholder bill that is just earmarked to say TAC recommendations that we could use to say that the TAC stays in place, but is not just defined to be limited to the tribal early learning hub design. We could rescope it to talk about advising on professional learning needs, language and culture support needs, whatever the TAC thought was appropriate to put in there so that the TAC could continue. And that body, if you all wanted, could even be called the Oregon Tribal Early Learning Alliance, right? So we have a vehicle to do that. And that also allows us to codify the fund. It allows us to codify the tribal early learning plan, to put DELC on the hook with administering that plan in alignment with and making sure our policies align with those recommendations. So we have those vehicles ready over the next several months if those are the directions that the TAC would like to go. And Sonia, anything I missed there that would be helpful?
No, I really like and keeping Otella. We did a lot of work around that design and the logo and the web page. I think that would be great. I would really like that professional development piece to stay like with the Otella, so that again we're respecting those people that are doing the work and that can participate in those language and culture together as a group, instead of the money just going to the tribes for doing their own professional development, because as we know, we all learn so much when we're sharing together what the possibilities and what could be done and what can serve our communities that we may not realize that's out there. So I really like the twofold of keeping the Otella that way and the developing the early learning fund that would go to direct set asides to tribes to be able to, again, raise those wages to make us competitive. A lot of tribal programs were, had higher wage than community, but now because they're receiving the community money, we're losing employees to those community-based early learning programs. So that I like the way that you framed out that it could be used for so many things, and would want to see those kind of outlined in it so that they remain. So no one can come back and say, well, some tribes are using it to raise wages, but we thought it was only for this. If they're all included in there, then, there's no question to it. Does anyone else have any comments? I mean, we have to come to consensus to move forward, and how we do that we really need to discuss, because we're really down to the wire. We don't have long to get these recommendations and through so that DELC knows what they're asking for. Does anyone have input, comments, preferences?
So when we met with our tribal council, there was concerns of us like being able to have an open discussion with it being a public meeting, and not being allowed the executive sessions in order to openly discuss with the other tribes about pros and cons and what works for our tribe, what might work for your tribe. So I don't know if there's a way that we can figure out to not have a public viewing for this type of meeting, because that was something that really stuck out for the Klamath tribes, having it being public, and maybe how that might be viewed if we aren't all sharing the same exact opinions.
Well, it's my understanding the statewide, the open meetings, it affects everything from college trustee meetings. I mean, all agencies are having to follow it, even ODE with the American Indian Alaska Native State Plan. All their meetings have to be public and be advertised. To do that, Alyssa, is it my understanding that the tribes would have to call or have to set that up, and that be separate from the work of the Otella, the TAC, or DELC? It couldn't be done by agency work, right?
Right. And I actually was just thinking, Sonia, of maybe reaching out to LCIS to see if they might be able to step in and help convene this rather than Delk, and if that might be a way to make sure that you all are able to exercise your sovereignty and have those government to government conversations. So I'm also going to follow up on that and see if there might be if that might be a way to help facilitate the space for that discussion.
And maybe it's something that you could ask LCIS to bring up in their meeting of how the tribal government officials want to handle that.
Sonia, is it okay to say something?
Absolutely, Julie.
What you're having to say now between yourself and Alyssa is like encouraging commentary, as if I understand it properly, that it's validating the tribal voice within the state system. So even though we don't have the separate Otella tribal hub as we had been working on for 2.5 years and hoping that would be something that would materialize. Alyssa seems to be working on offering several different avenues so that the tribal voice is not lost, if I understood her correctly. The only things that questions I have is if these things can be codified in statute in whatever ways that means, is that something that could be in perpetuity? And one thing, and then the other thing is that whatever amounts of funding, that somehow or other the wording is such that it flexes with the cost of living increases as time goes by. So sometimes they'll set like a certain amount of money, and it looks like a lot of money that's allocated for that year and that day and that time. But then the next year the costs are different and that kind of stuff. So I don't know how, I don't have the financial acuity that you guys have, but that's just, those are two concerns in that whole process.
Well, I know that and Alyssa can expand on it, but I know that in talking to a couple of the other agency directors for like Department, not Human Services, Health, that they write in that like a percentage, and I'm not sure what their percentage is. It 10%, 16%? Do you know, Alyssa?
I don't know off the top of my head, Sonia, but we can definitely check on that.
Okay. The director said that what they have written is that, so like this year, they invested a lot in early learning. I don't know how many millions that was invested, that if it was codified into law, that the tribes would automatically receive a percentage, and that percentage would already be written in. So if they had 30 million, then the tribes would get 10, 15 or whatever that percentage is. So that's the way that that I think it's Health and Human Services that she's the director.
I think they've to do that.
So any program that they run and they get money for it, then there's a tribal set aside to it. So like I know for our tribe, we have seen an increase in tobacco prevention in itself, because the state has invested money in those. So when that fund goes to the Department of Human Services and that tribal set aside comes, then tribes automatically get a piece of that money. Is that correct, Alyssa?
That's my understanding. So they've adopted an internal consultation policy that requires set-asides. And then anytime they introduce legislation, they automatically write in the set-aside. And anytime there is legislation with funding that would go to their agency, they suggest an amendment that would add a call out for tribal set-aside. So they both lead that work and then make sure that they're responding with that analysis and recommendation for legislation that they don't themselves control. And that's separate. What we've been thinking about is that in addition to a tribal early learning fund. And Julie, the hope, at least with that, is it would be a permanent fund with, it can vary biennium to biennium, but generally what happens is when agencies go to put together a requested budget, the governor's office and chief financial office tell agencies what inflationary adjustment to apply. So say it's a $10 million pot of funding, just because 10 is an easy number to work with. This year we had, I believe, a 4.2% inflationary adjustment. So that means you would add 4 million to the pot just based on inflation to get at your point, Julie, of operating costs go up and change. Now, we also could request in the future, not just that inflationary adjustment, but say we think we actually the pot needs to get even bigger. We think the pot needs to be 25 million. So we have those vehicles as well for the legislature to weigh in on, but we would want to establish this fund in statute so that it would be a lot harder to undo that, and that it would be an ongoing fund, not something we'd have to request money for every biennium.
That's wonderful to hear. Thank you.
Hello, Lloyd here. I stepped away for a couple of minutes. What's the final thought here on a choice? Is that where we're at?
Well, I think we're still having some discussions. I think we're still trying to kind of make sure that everybody's voice is heard and that everybody's is satisfied and feels like their tribes and their children's needs will be met with whatever plan we go with. So if you had an opportunity to run this by your tribal council as to what they wanted.
Yeah, I sent it to Jamie, and I haven't sat with her. She's been they went on a retreat, and then I got sick, and then anyway, we do need to see our council, our board of trustees. But I like the side-by-side views. Definitely makes a lot more sense to me than trying to think back on each one, to see them kind of visually for me. So the Ed Cluster Subcommittee looks pretty good, but I, it's not my decision, but I'll talk with Jamie and we'll try to get a board of trustees meeting as soon as we can.
It felt as if the group was leaning towards a hybrid model.
Which one? The hybrid.
A hybrid meaning that the professional development, the peer-to-peer support, the those kinds of things could be handled in a tribal hub, and the actual infrastructure bureaucratic piece of it would be held in the education cluster government to government subcommittee.
Okay, yeah. I like that. Thank you.
Sandy, and just for my clarification with tribal, sitting in the tribal hub, is the idea that would sit with the dollars would be set aside in a non-competitive way for each tribe through the tribal early learning fund that the Otella advisory board would meet around, or Sandy, coming back to what do we think a hub is? Are you talking about an entity that DELC would contract with to provide those services?
No, I think it's a set aside in the first one you talked about.
Okay.
But that's my opinion, right? So
I agree with you, Sandy.
So where does that live?
Say that again.
Sorry, I think I spoke over Sonia.
Oh, go. I was just gonna say that I like that idea as well. I just also am in the support of putting it in there to keep the change tack to Otella and continue to convene meetings and professional develop through Otella.
I agree with you too.
So
Go
does that
ahead and
Does that mean we would kind of continue as we're doing? Or do we need to create an office of Otella and have staff that's going to be managing this, the professional development, stuff like that? Or is it just kind of what we're doing right now?
I think so, because we have 2 staff now that we didn't previously have. But Alyssa, that's kind of your structure.
I think that's right. I'm trying to take these thoughts and put them in a slide that I can share, because what I kind of articulated, I think it's harder to track. But yes, and so if I am capturing this correctly, and I will finish writing this down, then this kind of hybrid model, we would open statute, we would rename the Tribal Advisory Committee Otella. We would not have it sunset, but instead it would be the advisory body that is holding DELC accountable to implementing the tribal early learning plan. And then we would also establish a tribal early learning fund in that plan, in that statute alongside the plan, which is where funding for language and culture support, professional development, compensation, all of that would be allowable uses. What I think we would want to work with you all on is, and the Gov2Gov Ed Cluster, how much of that do you want prescribed in statute? It can always be including but not limited to. So how much do you want prescribed in statute, and how much do you want open-ended? And then tribes would receive funding that could be used for professional development if that's what's needed. It could be used for language and culture support, compensation, whatever you all needed. And then our DELC Tribal Affairs Office would then be there to provide additional TA if you're unable to find the level of professional development, coaching, or support. We would work with you to find other resources, get you provide services directly where we can, and have that kind of hybrid approach.
Quick question for you, Alyssa.
Yeah.
If the Otella, TAC becomes Otella, then there's still the public meetings law for that body.
If TAC becomes Otella, the reason right now that it is subject to a public meeting is because it's advisory to the Early Learning Council. So we would remove that requirement too. I think that's a good, we don't need, the reason that the TAC is currently advisory to the council is because the council has rulemaking authority for a tribal hub. And so we have lots of other organizations that exist that are advisory to DELC or community that don't fall under those public meeting requirements. And so I think that's a really good flag, Dana. We want to make sure we craft that in a way that you all are able to have the conversations you need, whether we're present or not.
Okay, to ask a question?
Yep.
Are you able, Alyssa, to send us that?
Yes, I'm writing it right now, Julie. And if I finish it in the next couple minutes, I'll even share my screen.
Because I'm gonna have to log off pretty soon, and I don't want to miss anything. So I sure appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can certainly appreciate where we're at, because for some of us, and I don't know if this is true for everybody, but sometimes the even though this is an early learning hub, that and why we wanted it was for a special population, was for language and culture. But however, sometimes those two entities don't sit together. I mean, like sometimes, well, let's say for our instance, the DELC grant sits under the education branch, because that's where the culture and language teachers are, and those folks are the ones teaching the teachers how to provide instruction in the native language. And then the brand, or the early learning center itself, sits under Health and Human Services. So you have it's quite a process. But at the same time, we try to do everything that we can for the best for our children. And, you know, language and culture are the foundation of who we are. So I, you know, can appreciate that, you know, the professional development also comes under the, remains under the OTELA or gonna be X-TAC or, you know, and that we're trying to find ways that we can compromise to get this work done.
So I think I wrote this accurately, so I will share my screen real quick and see if this, and this, don't mean in any way to say that the conversation is done. I just want to make sure that this high level capture is sitting well with folks. So revising the statute to make the Tribal Advisory Committee the Oregon Tribal Early Learning Alliance. We would remove that this body is advisory to the Early Learning Council, and instead it would advise DELC and monitor our implementation of the Tribal Early Learning Plan that's based on the American Indian Alaska Native Student Success Plan. We would revise that same statute to remove the creation of a tribal early learning hub and replace that with the establishment of both a tribal early learning plan and a tribal early learning fund to fund the activities of that plan. The allowable uses for that fund could include, but would not be limited to, language and culture development, professional development, and early childhood education program staff compensation.
I like the way they put ECE programs because we have both Head Start and childcare preschool. So I really, really like that that can be inclusive for both parts.
Yep. And we have some time in terms of legislative concepts. We do have a couple of months, and so we can keep finessing this language. And if we want to add more explicit allowable uses so that it doesn't get lost, we've got time to keep fleshing that out and make sure it feels exhaustive enough, but not too limiting.
And we can still ask for, like, the person that takes Angie's position with the Early Learning Council to still sit on and give updates to them, but not necessarily be that advisory person. Is that correct?
Yeah, Sonia, that's a great question. As you all were talking about representation, and Val, your comments, what you all could decide and recommend to the cluster, how much do you want to define that OTELA membership in statute? Right now, the TAC is defined who sits on it. How much of that do you want defined in statute, and how much of it do you want the TAC and OTELA to be able to define yourselves? And so we can be as prescriptive or broad as you all want to be in the statutory language. And that's something we could come back with at a future meeting, is what's currently in statute that you all would want to maintain. And then Val, to your comment of not everything lives in education, and so not every or things don't always live in health and human services. So making sure it's the right balance of statutory doesn't mean you couldn't include other folks in that representation as well. Stop sharing. I can add some of those considerations to this little slide deck and send that out, kind of what outstanding questions we could surface if this is the direction to go.
I saw a lot of thumbs up while we were having that discussion, so I feel like that's a really good sign.
Yeah, that feels pretty good. Just kind of taking a room temperature check. Valerie gave me a thumbs up. I'm a happy woman. Marcia Frost gave me a thumbs up.
I saw Angela Fasana did too. So did Angie Blackwell.
Okay. Michael Cherry. Okay. Okay.
The other thing I really, with what Val was saying, that I really like to point out is that by doing set asides, you know, and the money, like coming to the tribes for that, and it's internal that we decide where that's gonna go, that, you know, some money could go to the early learning, but stay in the culture for the teachers. I mean, we have the flexibility to meet our own individual needs, especially if they're not within the same programs.
Feels like it honors the individuality of each of the tribes.
That sovereignty piece, so we can take care of our own people.
Okay, is anybody else's brain hurt?
I love the steps to educational sovereignty, folks.
Yes, and language preservation and growth.
Yep. Okay. That was a solid discussion. So are we wanting to look at sorry, going back to the agenda because we do have one of those. Are we proposing an April in person? Take yourself off mute, Alyssa. Come on now.
I was deep sighing and saying, good question. And I know there was talk about doing a work group. I don't know, Sandy, if ideally we'd want to do like morning work group, PM TAC. I mean, we're happy to host and staff and provide coffee or whatever.
Lots of coffee. Well, well, we needed to have one. So Delk was going to go out and get some stuff done. And is it realistic for what? Is it realistic to have a meeting in April, given what we tasked Delk with putting together? Yes. Okay. I want to be reasonable about things. So if we looked at like our regularly scheduled second Wednesday in April as having that as an in-person piece. I get it.
April 10th.
Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
So would that be the final time that we would have then to make decisions to move forward? Or how long time do we have, Alyssa?
Let me consult my handy list. So April 30th is our deadline to kind of submit preliminary drafts. So, but we have until end of July to keep fine tuning. So I think we could aim to have the big bones of the legislative concept landed by then, but we'd be able to use the May and June tax to keep refining as well.
This is Angela Fasana, and I'm not available on the 10th, although I do see that Dawn, which is the new ECE program manager, also potentially Justine. So that's not a decision maker. I just wanted to put that out there that I am not available at 10th, 11th, or 12th.
I also won't be here. I'll be in Hawaii at that time.
Well, darn it. Wait, did I have Zoom in Hawaii? What's up?
From the beach.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, maybe we should meet earlier then and give it a little bit more time to refine what we come up with before the TAC for Delk to do some more refining.
Sure, looking at calendars. And we do keep a hybrid option, right?
Right.
For those that cannot drive over. You know, oddly enough, I know I'm going to curse myself. I have nothing on I have nothing on the 9th. Oh, hi, baby. You gonna take that baby to Hawaii? Fabulous.
She is going to Hawaii, actually, along with all her brothers and sisters. And
Fun.
cousins and great grandma.
Fun. Okay, we got sidetracked by a small child. So what's availability look like on the 9th for folks? Or do you want to go back even farther?
I'm good with the 9th.
How about you, Sonia?
This is Angie, Fasana. I am good with the 9th as well.
Okay.
Yes, I am good.
How long is the meeting?
Well, if usually when we meet in person, we usually kind of get our act together and get things done pretty quickly. So I'm going to guess maybe a half a day versus like a full day slugfest.
And where is it usually held? If it's in
We try to hold them in Salem, but we do a virtual option.
Yeah.
So we hear that, recognize that as being important. So can we look at the 9th? The 9th start at 9? The 9 at 9?
Looks good to me.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Dory will have coffee for us because she loves us.
Yes, and I love coffee. Less importantly, it's not about me.
We all need coffee, so.
Coffee's nectar of the gods. Okay. All right. So that's our next face-to-face and hammer out some more work to get done, right? 9 at 9. Or excuse me, 4 9 at 9. Sorry. Congratulations to Valentina, Catherine, Britt, and Rebecca, Natalie, who hung with us the whole meeting. Nicely done. You know, we didn't open this meeting with any kind of spiritual grounding. We did not do that. And I feel like it's important to close this meeting with some spiritual grounding.